Okay, let's talk about what's wrong with Patrick Mahomes, which is a crazy sentence to utter, right? What do you mean what's wrong with him? He went to 3 straight Super Bowls and won 2 of them. I think things are okay. However, if you look at some numbers, there's no denying that Mahomes' stats and the Chiefs' offense in general has been underwhelming these past 2 years, even though they did go to the Super Bowl both years and won 2 years ago. So that's what I want to discuss in today's video, is why have those numbers been underwhelming? How can they get better, and how can this offense get back to being elite? And should they, or should they just continue to pump resources into the defense and try to be a defensive-minded team? Or at least maybe a complete roster is maybe the better way to phrase it. But yeah, let's just jump into it. So first, let's look at some very basic stats, something that I'm sure that you all are aware of, PFF grades and passer rating, and you see for Patrick Mahomes' first 3 years, I'm excluding 2017, he only played 1 game there. I'm going to exclude that from all of these charts. I should mention as well, we're going to get into some charts, and then we will get into some films shortly after this. But first, you look at his PFF grade and passer rating for the first 3 years of his career, over 90 grades each year. That's really good. And the passer rating well over 100 each of those 3 years. Okay, great stuff. 2021, you did see a dip. His worst PFF grade, which is still over 80, but for him, those are very bad numbers by his standards, and the passer rating dipped below 100 for the first time in his career. Why did this happen? Well, remember, in the 2020 Super Bowl, Tampa Bay played 2 safety deep coverages the whole game, and all of a sudden, Tyreek Hill was taken out of the game. Levante David was able to cover up Travis Kelce, and the offensive line couldn't block because of injuries, and Mahomes had nowhere to go with the ball. He was under pressure all day, wasn't able to make anything happen. So then in 2021, every team did that basically, and we saw Mahomes' worst season. He still made the conference championship and went to overtime, but that was still his worst season. They were able to bounce back, though. They kind of shifted their mindset. They traded Tyreek Hill after the 2021 season to try and be better at dinking and dunking, and it, for the first year, went really well. 92 PFF grade, again, for Mahomes, 105 passer rating. They won the Super Bowl, beating the Philadelphia Eagles. The next couple years, though, you see the decline, right? PFF grade was still good in 2023, but was his second lowest ever in 2024, and the passer rating was the lowest he's ever had in 2023 and second lowest he's ever had in 2024. I decided to look at a couple more advanced statistics. So this is EPA, so estimated points added per play, and then also points per drive. That's the whole Chiefs defense. That's not just Mahomes. EPA, just Mahomes' snaps. And you see for EPA, it's top 4. It was top 4 in the first 5 years of his career, and top 3 in 4 of those years. And then the past 2 years, he's just been 8th and then 10th in those stats. Still good numbers, but not typical Mahomes numbers, right? Points per drive is also lower. While my data doesn't go back past 2020, I'm going to assume it was still very good then. You see, points per drive was over 2.75 points per drive in each of the past 3 years, but then in 2023 and 2024, it's dipped pretty massively. This number is the easy, clear cutoff for what's been going wrong these past 2 years. This is his passer rating when he throws 20 yards or more down the field. You see, the first 5 years, 2020 was a little bit lower, but it was still great all 5 of those years, and at times dominant. Even in 2021, with teams playing cover 2 a bunch, they didn't throw the ball down the field as much because of that, but when they did, they were still just as dominant. And even in 2022, after the Tyreek Hill trade, they were still really good at throwing down the field. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was an effective piece, but I don't think he was the whole reason for this, right? 2023, you see a massive decline, and while it was better in 2024 with Xavier Worthy showing up, still, I mean, we're talking about below 80 for someone who used to be consistently like in the 115, 120s range when it comes to passer rating 20 yards down the field. What's going on? Well, we can show some film. I mean, I think this could be one thing we can look at as a reason why perhaps this hasn't been going as well, is we've seen more roster turnover in the receiving core, right? Zone coverage right here. The Chiefs are going to have a couple of receivers just run setup routes, but that's not really where they're going to look to throw the football. Marquise Brown will be the guy who, that's where they're going to look at. This is a 3rd down and 11. Okay, let's see what happens. Mahomes takes the snap. He's going to look in that direction. He fires in that direction, and it's just a bit overthrown, not able to make that work. him and Hollywood Brown just didn't have enough time to connect. They didn't play a lot, and you have to assume if they had a whole season together, they would have had that chemistry down. After all, the deep pass is, so chemistry based. Like, we can talk about this play from the Super Bowl. Him and Xavier Worthy did not really have the deep pass down early on this year at all. Mahomes missed Worthy a couple times. Worthy ran out of bounds a couple times on plays when he didn't have to. But here in the Super Bowl, the game's over. The backups are in. But still, Mahomes takes the snap. He's going to have a clean pocket right here, so he's able to step into the throw, fires it down the field. And I know the backups are in. This isn't that open, right? I mean, this is going to have to be a perfect throw. However, as you see, a perfect throw it is, and they're able to get that big touchdown to cut the lead to just 20. Okay, still wasn't going to work out, but just saying, the talent is still there, right? I don't think Mahomes has forgotten how to throw deep passes. Okay, well then, what's the issue? Why has this gone so much worse in the past couple of years? If it's not a personnel thing, is it Matt Nagy? He showed up? I don't think so. I mean, I know that people like to make fun of offensive coordinators, but these guys aren't stupid, right? If they know that they have Mahomes, they're not going to just intentionally stop throwing down the field. There has to be a reason, and I think it's something that really doesn't get talked about a lot, but probably should, which is the Chiefs' offensive line's kind of stunk these past couple of years. I mean, you think about it, after that 2022 season, they let Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley both go. And Andrew Wiley, not considered to be an elite right tackle or anything like that, but he was effective for them. Like, he was passable, not a star, but I'm sure the Chiefs fans wouldn't have hated to have him instead of their left tackle situation this past year, although he played right tackle. And Orlando Brown Jr. hasn't been great for Cincinnati, but was a good tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not saying the Chiefs inherently made mistakes letting either of those two guys walk, but who they replaced them with has been an issue. They paid Jawan Taylor a ton of money, who quite frankly just hasn't been great for them. They also decided to sign Donovan Smith essentially off the street. He wasn't very good. This past year, they drafted a guy in the second round who was not very good at all, Kingsley Sumatea. And so because of that, they had to kind of figure something out. They ended up having their really good guard play tackle, and Mike Caliendo, the backup guard, had to then become the starter at guard, and that really struggled offensively, and they really just haven't had time to throw the ball down the field. Like, this play is a great example of what we see just so much with Kansas City. I watched every Patrick Mahomes snap last year, and this is a ton of what I saw, which is it's a cover one play. DeAndre Hopkins is where he's going to look at. Again, what would Mahomes do years ago? Even if Tyreek Hill isn't there, he would love to, find a speedy receiver and throw down the field. Well, here it's Hopkins. He's not really a speed guy, so they're going to run a different route, but still, one-on-one matchup. Mahomes takes the snap. You're going to see he looks over, and as of right now, this just isn't open. Well, in the past, Mahomes could wait for something to open up down the field, right? This is that 20-plus yards down the field stuff that he's been electric at. However, right there, you can't wait any longer. This play is over. As you see, Mahomes just takes the sack right there, and that's kind of what happened, is these deep shots he either wouldn't be able to take, or he would get tackled as he's trying to make the throw, which results in the lower passer rating, right? Results in more turnovers, things of that nature. The reality is the Chiefs just don't have the resources to throw down the field consistently. The Kansas City Chiefs did a great job of being able to work underneath this year, but when they played Philadelphia, a team really good at covering that stuff, they just didn't have any other options, because the second their first read is covered, they can't get to the next read, and they can't get to a read deeper down the field, because then pressure came, and that was all she wrote. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, their strategy clearly, after losing that 2020 Super Bowl to Tampa Bay, was to bolster the offensive line. And it worked. For 2 years, they got much better offensive line play. Then they won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. They had to let those guys walk. And their strategy kind of shifted to, well, let's make sure we pump enough resources into our defense to make sure that we have a good defense, right? When they traded away Tyreek Hill, part of what they did was they used a lot of those draft picks defensively. They wanted to kind of say, we don't need that much help for Patrick Mahomes. He's going to give us a good offense, and even so, they still do typically have a top 10 offense, even with a really bad pass-blocking offensive line and a below-average receiving core. It's not a horrible strategy, but this year, when the defense took a step back due to losing L'Jarius Sneed, then the issues kind of arose enough that they weren't able to ultimately win the Super Bowl, which for the Chiefs is their goal. So And one thing that might be scary for the rest of the league, but I think is fair, is I think the Chiefs have a lot of room for improvement. If they can even just improve the left tackle position and hope Jawan Taylor can just be all right, I think that could do a lot for them. Now, many people might sit here and say, well, wait a second. They just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago, and that was one of those years where the downfield passing wasn't very good. And while that's true, think about how many things had to go right that year to win a Super Bowl. That was easily their toughest year to win at all. I mean, they blew out Miami. That was not difficult. Miami in the cold, no real issues there. And they played well in that game as well. But then you had Buffalo, and Mahomes always plays the Sean McDermott defense in the playoffs really well, right? So that was a game where Mahomes was legitimately great and didn't need downfield passing to be great. But against Baltimore's defense honestly played great in that game. They gave up touchdowns on back-to-back drives to start the game, but only gave up 3 points the rest of the way. But Baltimore just, I'll give credit to Kansas City. Kansas City's defense just kept making big plays in big moments. And then against San Francisco, it was kind of a similar thing where you saw that the 49ers defense was actually able to limit the Chiefs pretty well. If you remember, the Chiefs only had more than 6 points in the first 3 quarters due to a muffed punt that led to a touchdown. Without that, they would have had 6 points in the first 3 quarters. So definitely, it was a slow-moving offensive game for Mahomes until the end when he was able to, it was close enough. He was able to get it done when he had a chance. In the Philadelphia game this past year, he just never had that opportunity. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in football. I don't care what anyone says. He's still the guy that everybody would want. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't do things to make him better. And I think the Chiefs maybe went a little too far in saying, oh, you can control everything, because then your defense has to be pretty perfect. And while it was 2 years ago, it wasn't last year and might not be this year as well. So you might need to just put a little bit more resources back into the offense and let Mahomes carry you a little bit more. At least that's what I would do. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.